So it is my pleasure to introduce to you today Allison Gibson. I was trying to think last night. I think I've known you, Allison, for like 15 years or maybe even more now. And since then, honestly, Allison is just such an inspiration for not only helping people, but also really educating people, really helping teach people. And I can honestly say raising the whole community up. Allison has been involved in so many different things. And I'm really and has been in newspapers and whatnot. I'm really looking forward to hearing her talk today about what she's been up to recently. So thank you, Allison.
Awesome. Thank you for having me and thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm going to attempt to screen share, and I say attempt because you know how that goes. Um, doo-doo-doo. Just wanted to share a little bit about what I guess, as Tara said, working on, but I do have some visuals to go along with it, along with maybe a little bit, I would say, like of an explanation or a backstory. So give me a sec. Oh, I see what I did here. Audience window, share screen. Awesome. Okay, please let me know if you can see. You
You're
can.
good.
Amazing. Okay. So essentially oops, sorry, I'll just leave that. Essentially for the past, I would say, oh my gosh, like 20 years or so, I've been working in the food industry in various capacities that I'll get into, but primarily I'm currently focused on social enterprise consulting, program development, food innovation, and community development. And I'll get into what all of that means. And I do that under my own personal brand, which is allig.co, just a riff on my name. I do kind of brand myself as a food entrepreneur through and through, in that I do work in food. I've launched my own food businesses. Last summer, I launched a food business because I was bored. So I primarily am a food entrepreneur, but I do utilize my food skills and just expertise as a consultant. I also have worked in the social enterprise field for about a decade, and I know that's sometimes a bit of a buzzword or people aren't sure what that is, but I'll get into that as well. But I do offer social enterprise advisory. And aside from being a consultant, I do work with two organizations, not on a full-time basis, but I do prioritize them over, say, taking individual clients on a like day-to-day basis. And those two organizations are Spring Activator. They are based out of BC, but it is a global organization, essentially a consulting firm that works to support social purpose entrepreneurs and their businesses. And I also work for the Center of Learning and Development, which is located in Regent Park. If you're not familiar, Regent Park is going through mass gentrification. They're about like halfway through a 20-plus year plan to revitalize the neighborhood. And I work with the Center of Learning and Development as their social enterprise training and development manager, primarily with newcomer women, immigrants in general, and then those that are just looking to improve or upgrade their life. I just have a snapshot here of the clients that I currently work with because, of course, I don't do this by myself. Aside from having teams with both organizations that I work with, I heavily rely on the connections I've made throughout my careers, like corporate catering and corporate event planning and all the things I've done. So I'm lucky to be able to work with the likes of Kraft Heinz, Uber Eats, Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce. Currently working with the City of Toronto. I actually, just before this call, just submitted a bid to manage a new food hall for the City of Toronto, so fingers crossed. And also get a lot of support from the United Way via funding and just social enterprise mentorship and development. Um, wow. So I guess to give you a bit about my story and my background, about 10 years ago, so almost a decade ago, I started working for Paint Box Catering and Bistro, which is a restaurant catering company and an event space located in Regent Park. It's a for profit business, but primarily the focus is to provide employment and training opportunities in hospitality to anybody that identifies as marginalized. So essentially, we would hire anybody from Regent Park or a local priority neighborhood that was interested in learning about food or getting into the industry. And we would subsidize their or pay for their cost of education, so to go to culinary school or to seek training, and then come work with us to continue their training and learning and just skills development and growth. We did this really well for about 9 years, and then COVID hit. And in about 2 days, we lost just under $2 million worth of sales, and I knew there was no way that we would last. There was no way we would be able to like recover or recoup that money. And of course, we didn't know what COVID was, right? I remember when we went into lockdown, there was this, oh, we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we just thought it would be okay. And I had been, previous to us going in lockdown, I'd been at several international conferences. So I'd been seeing what people around the world were going through with regards to COVID. So I knew that it wasn't going to be kind of just like a flash in the pan, if you will. So in about 6 weeks, we had to lay off our team. So I had to lay off 30 people, which was absolutely devastating. And it just ended up being myself and my business partner, who were the only two employees of the business. And so quickly, I kind of put my thinking cap on. I found an investor who was willing to give me $1 million. I don't know how I convinced someone to do that during a pandemic, but I did. And with that money, I was able to launch an online grocery store called Nibley. And it launched as Toronto's first ethical grocery store with a mandate to give back to the community, which was similar to Paintbox's mandate. We utilized our B Corp status to leverage just our connections and to kind of stake our place in the grocery industry, which is a very, very, very competitive market with almost like razor thin, slim to no margins. But we were able to do it. And the photos I have on the screen here are just a quick snapshot of what happened during COVID. So while launching the grocery store, I was also still working with community, working with newcomer women. We launched a seniors meal program that I'll get into later that essentially takes newcomer women, lets them cook whatever food that they love to cook. And we were taking those meals and feeding seniors in Regent Park that were vulnerable due to having health issues associated with COVID. A lot of them had mental health issues. A lot of them were classified as shut-ins. And essentially were living in a building that was owned and operated by Toronto Community Housing. Prior to it being owned by Toronto Community Housing, it was a full seniors residence. And then when Toronto Community Housing took it over, all of the seniors that were there kind of got forgotten about. So that building is still there. It's at 220 Oak Street, and it's so hard to explain what I see when I go there because I often door knock and deliver meals myself, and it was very obvious that people were suffering. So I've really prioritized the feeding of vulnerable seniors throughout COVID, just based off of what I've seen. I would say within the first 3 months of like delivering meals as part of the program, there were multiple suicides, there were drug overdoses amongst the seniors. And it was something that I didn't ever think of. Like seniors and drugs don't typically go together, in my mind at least. But when you're living in poverty, there's a lot of things. So this is just a quick snapshot of what my life has been like in COVID. My current priorities are impact consulting, program development, fundraising, and food access and community benefit. For the impact consulting, I know that's kind of like a broad way or a buzzword, but everybody's focused on creating great and positive impact right now, which I love. But having been at the head of impact-driven businesses, I now don't focus on anything corporate. I actually gave up all of my corporate clients. I don't think I'm ever going back to a corporate lifestyle. I just can't. But I've worked in the corporate space, whether it be marketing. I worked at Disney World. I've worked on cruise ships. I've worked at hotels. I've done a ton of advisory. So I take all of that knowledge and skill and I use it to advise others on their business models for companies they're launching or trying to pivot or revamp. I do develop programs for any and everybody. So I'm currently developing and delivering programs for City of Toronto, various economic development departments all across Canada. So later today, I'm doing a session for Cowichan Valley, which is on Vancouver Island. So we get pretty granular with the focus with some of the things that I do, or it can be very broad, like working with the City of Toronto and just saying we're doing a program for anybody. Fundraising. I work with organizations that fundraise. I use my event planning expertise to fundraise. And then I also have my own fundraiser that I started, just a GoFundMe grassroots organization that gets money to those who need it. Perfect example of this would be during COVID, right across from my office in Regent Park. There's a construction site and there was a noose that was found hanging. And it was one of many nooses that were found on Allisons construction sites all over the city. And when this happened, of course, living in a very multicultural neighborhood, everybody was outraged, everybody was pissed off. And there was a really big outcry for a community call to action, but there was no money. So the money that I was fundraising just for COVID initiatives, I used for things like funding protests and rallies that are peaceful wasteful, of course, but to provide things like hand sanitizer, masks, water, to feed the guest speakers, rent AV equipment, microphones, things like that, tents, what have you. So that's what I use my personal fundraising funds for. And then also focused on food access and community fridges. So there's a billion programs I can tell you about, but I think the most important one is the community fridge program. I can get into that specifically now. I didn't start the community fridge initiative. It was started by an organization that just goes by Community Fridges Toronto, or Community Fridges TO. The person, Jaleel, who started the initiative, actually got the idea from his friend in New York, who one day was just tired of seeing people go hungry in his community, put a fridge outside on the sidewalk, stocked it with food, and put a simple sign on it that said, take what you need and leave what you can. And that was it. So Jaleel, who's based in Toronto, saw this and thought, oh my God, we have to do this in Toronto. And it's one of those full circle moments where I happened to be just coming from a friend's coffee shop that's located at like Dundas and Dufferin, and like walking down the street, and I saw a fridge that just said free food. I snapped a picture of it, put it on Instagram, and I was like, I love this. Like, does anybody know where this came from? And I was quickly connected to Jaleel, who was like, I just did this yesterday. If you're interested in helping spread the word, I'd love to have you. So right away, I put a fridge outside of Paintbox, and same thing, put a sign on it that just says, take what you need, leave what you can. Put it on my Instagram, and I would say within an hour was completely stocked full. And then I would say within another hour, it was already empty. So without, that I almost came obsessed with this fridge, watching just the cycle of it being filled and empty all day long by people like you would least expect. And that really highlighted a need that was, of course, feeding people, but that everybody is suffering. And it doesn't matter what you look like, where you live. There are people coming out of pretty well-to-do looking houses and cars that were either contributing to the fridge or taking from the fridge. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, everybody's suffering. People are out of jobs. This was at the height of the pandemic when grocery stores or grocery shelves are empty. So I was really excited to be part of this. And through being part of this program, a lot of things happened. So I got in contact by every media or news outlet, Toronto Star, Blog TO, Globe and Mail, like literally everybody wanted to interview me based off of the media attention I was receiving from the grocery store. So I just used that momentum to promote the fridge project. Now there are 8 fridges all over the city. The one that I started is no longer there, unfortunately, because the landlord outside of the business didn't like it. They thought it was ugly, so I had to take it down. It is now located inside of Paintbox, so it's still accessible, just not 24/7. So it's no longer on the map because the concept is the fridges are accessible 24 hours a day. And the fridges are also managed by a network of volunteers. So there's a whole slew of people that we have a really interesting chat, or several chat groups that talk about like who's sanitizing them. They're cleaned throughout the day. Every hour they're sanitized, they're restocked. People go through and do quality control and assessment. There's everything that you can think of. So it's a nice little network that runs, and nobody gets paid for it to do anything. It's all volunteer run, and I love it. To me, it's just a really great example of how you can make impact today. Other programs that I'm doing right now are listed on the screen here, and I'll quickly whip through them. I am doing a restaurant resilience program in collaboration with Economic Development in BC and Ontario. And it's a really cool program that allows restaurants who are pivoting or adding a new revenue stream to their existing business to contact me and another member of my team for just one-to-one consulting advice, mentorship, best practices, resources, you name it. And so far, it's absolutely been amazing. Ontario, I think and Canada has been hit hardest by COVID regulations, and that we've had the longest lockdown in Canada, one of the longest in the world. Our restaurants and pretty much everything really suffered, but especially small businesses. So I love, love, love doing this program and getting to talk to entrepreneurs and restaurant owners. We only make this program available to entrepreneurs. So if it's like a restaurant chain or something, not that I don't care about them, but I don't care about them. They don't need my expertise. The Seniors Meal Program, as I mentioned, is delivering daily meals to vulnerable seniors in Regent Park. Actually sad to share that our partner kitchen, which was Paintbox Catering and Bistro where I used to work, can no longer accommodate us for several reasons. So the program is actually on hold, and I just had a call yesterday with Toronto Community Housing and the 2 developers of Regent Park who are doing the revitalization to kind of say, I need kitchen space. So fingers crossed that something will come out of that. But it was really heartbreaking to have to call the seniors that we support and say, unfortunately, our program's on hold because the two other food banks that they relied on in Regent Park are also gone. So that's kind of keeping me up at night in terms of just stressing about how to get food to people. The Ethnic Food Incubator program was amazing. It was the first of its kind program in North America, and it was in collaboration with the Canadian Chamber of Black Commerce. And I was contracted through Spring, so it was a very convoluted thing, but I was contracted through Spring Activator to design and deliver this program as a national program, and it ended up being all women. Wasn't the intent, but it just ended up being women because we're badass and get things done. And there were 15 women from across Canada who were working on launching a new like product or a restaurant, something to do with food. And it was a really cool experience. We spent 3 months together working on all stages of launching and kind of like growing a business. And it ended with anyone who was ready getting into Sobeys as a grocery store partner that we partnered with, or launching a restaurant or a ghost kitchen. We also partnered with Uber Eats to make that happen. So that program is done, but we're actually planning the second intake of it, which is coming in the fall. And not too sure what the focus of it will be yet. We're still trying to hash out, should it be women again? Should it be open to everybody? Should we do it youth focused? But the one thing will remain that it will be focused on exclusively ethnic food businesses. Fun fact, I met up with, or got connected with Kraft Heinz through doing the Ethnic Food Incubator, and they came on as a mentor. And after one session, they called me and said they're in 96% of households in North America, and they don't have one product that looks like what we're working on in this program. So I absolutely love it. And the last one that I'm really passionate about is Mothers of Peace. It's a grassroots organization that was started in response to violence in Regent Park. So just a group of mothers who were tired of seeing their children or their children's friends being killed or losing their lives or getting into trouble with senseless violence. They came together, formed this organization, and they get everything done. Every single penny that's donated to them goes back into the community, whether it's a vigil, a protest. There was a fire at someone's house. A family that had like 6 kids. Their like apartment burnt down. Within hours, the family was in a hotel, had food, had clothing, had everything, and it was all because of Mothers of Peace. When the noose was found, like I mentioned, they were the ones who called me. I was actually moving when the noose was found and got a call from them, and they're like, we need you down here right now. We need flyers printed, we need water, we need sunscreen, we need masks. And I was there. I absolutely love them. I've never seen things happen so quickly. So I'm very, very passionate about supporting them. I don't get paid to work with them. I wouldn't take a penny to. I just love plugging them whenever I can, because they're the backbone of the community, and I'm just in love. So everyone always asks me, how can I help? How can I get involved? And I'm always like, where do I start? This is just my quick list of suggestions. And of course, I'm whipping through this really quickly because I know we're limited for time. But I always just say, give someone a chance. I'm a shining example of what happens when you can give someone a chance. I grew up in a very low income neighborhood. My parents were lovely. They worked very hard, often 2 jobs to make ends meet. They did a very good job of keeping my sisters and I out of trouble. They did everything they could to make sure that I went on to pursue post-secondary education and had all the things that I could ever want. I have no idea how they did this, but they did. And I realized that I could not squander what my parents, or the opportunities my parents had presented and provided for me. And it just took one person to give me a chance for me to end up where I am. So I had one person in college come up to me and say, you're really good with people. Would you ever consider working at Disney World or anything like that? And I was like, there's no way I'm going to work at Disney World. They encouraged me to apply. I was one out of thousands of applicants who applied, and ended up being one of 20 who got an opportunity to work at Disney World, take their management training program that's world renowned. It's designed in collaboration with Apple and IBM, and it was just a life-changing opportunity. And from that, it just snowballed and allowed me to end up where I am now. So I always say, give someone a chance. You never know what your investment in someone can end up repaying. Working together is my number one. I don't do anything on my own. I cannot take any credit on my own. I would not be where I am if it wasn't for a number of people. So I always say, let's work together. I'm happy to do one-to-one calls, free consultations, even if it's just a pick my brain or brainstorming session to see what we can come up with. Put your money where your mouth is. That is my favorite saying. I mentioned I have a corporate background. I did, prior to getting involved in social enterprise, I worked for the government for a number of years, very boring job. Will never work for the federal government ever again. But I worked for border services and immigration. And while it was a very educational experience, very boring. I worked for tons of marketing agencies and companies like Sony and a lot of alcohol brands, just doing event planning and things all over Canada. And the one thing that I noticed is a lot of greenwashing or a lot of commitments to things that don't happen. So, we commit to environment, we commit to being anti-racist or anti something, and then nothing happens of it or comes of it. So I'm the first person to challenge people and call them out. And I always say, put your money where your mouth is. The biggest way to make an impact is by sharing resources. Yes, knowledge and wealth sharing absolutely helps, but change cannot happen without dollars behind it. And I always say, be the change, just lead by example. I don't tolerate injustice. I won't tolerate slick or sly remarks about other people. Disparaging or racist remarks do not fly around me. And I always challenge others to hold people around you accountable and have those uncomfortable conversations, because it's just, the smallest ideas end up being or can end up resulting in something that's really impactful and a big change. And even just stepping up for someone in the smallest way can also really positively impact their life. Fundraising goals. So this is just part of this presentation. This is not to say you all need to give me money. This is just part of it. But my goals. I am in the process of raising $50,000. This actually started last year, I would say, and then I kind of took a hiatus, and now I'm back in the summer. And my goals with this money are to feed 500 families. I've fed 100 family, just over 100 families so far, and it actually didn't cost that much. I raised just under $5,000 last summer. I was able to feed 100 families multiple times, so not just one time, through the grocery store I launched. I partnered with Lyft last summer as well, who were providing free ride credits for people to get to and from food pickup locations with me. So I'm going to start doing that again. Community events are back. Yay. Thankfully, we're allowed to go back outside and do things. So I've already started planning 3 community events that all focus on community benefit in the form of whatever happens, benefits a marginalized group or a marginalized sector of the community. An example of that is setting up a weekly, almost like a farmer's market or a community bazaar, where all of the vendors are newcomers that are showcasing a food or an item that they make that they're really proud of, that they're working on or in hopes of launching their own business with. So it's a really cool opportunity for them to get feedback from like customers and also just to earn some money. And I'm passionate about business. So I'm looking for one more, but helping 3 women launch a business for free. And it's a lot of work, I won't lie. It's a lot more than I expected. I have a history of helping people launch businesses, but doing 4 at once is a bit much considering I have a lot going on, but it's amazing. And they're all social purpose businesses, and they're all women who are have the ability to kind of pull their family out of poverty if their businesses are successful. So I'm very, very passionate about that. Oops. That's it. So if you need to find me, after this, I will put some links in the chat. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can email me. If you're on Instagram, you can follow me. I don't really go on Facebook or Twitter anymore because I don't have time. And my website is currently being redeveloped. So I can share the link, but you won't see anything yet. And I'm always open for a talk. So if you ever have any questions, suggestions, or even just like, oh, Allison would love to learn about this, please send it my way. I read everything. I'm constantly reading articles and doing research. So if you ever come across something and like to share it, I welcome that. And if you're interested in any of the media coverage surrounding anything I've done, happy to share those links as well. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and thank you. And I'll stop sharing right now.
Any questions from anyone?
When do you sleep?
Never. I don't, to be quite honest. That is a great question. I I don't sleep that much. I'm always working, and I recently adopted or welcomed my niece to come live with me, so I don't sleep. And my niece heard that, and she goes, "I take care of myself. I just pay for things."
Wow. Wow, Allison, I mean, wow, I just don't know. Yeah, I can see how you don't have time to sleep because of everything that you're doing. I mean, it's all amazing and impressive. And I guess, it's unfortunate that your seniors meal program has been, is on hold.
Mhm.
And I wonder if there's anything that we can do to help in some of your projects, and we could work together, as a lot of your focus is a lot of what we focus on as well. So
Amazing. I'm going to quickly put in the chat just some resources how you can find me. Any link I put in here to donate is not for me specifically. I think if anyone is interested in anything, it would be donating to CLND, which is the organization that I work for, that technically is the parent organization of the Seniors Meal Program. We did launch it with funding from United Way. They're really great about that. They'll always kind of support me with my projects, but the main thing is we lost access to our kitchen, and that I no longer work at Paintbox, and their focus has changed. So not that they don't care about us, but they are a business that is trying to survive during COVID, and there are just no commercial kitchens that we can rent. So if anyone, the biggest thing would be, if anyone finds any kitchens that are in and around the Regent Park area that are commercial kitchens, or even restaurants that would be willing to take us on, it'd be amazing. And you can definitely email me and let me know.
All right.
Okay, any other questions? If not, does anyone else have any other business for today or anything to discuss?
I think Jim is going to thank our speaker.
Oh, yes.
Mr.
Okay, then I
Houghton.
will go to Jim Houghton to thank our speaker.
Allison, on behalf of Toronto East Rotary, want to thank you for coming and sharing your story with us. I'm sure we're all awed by your initiative. Just unbelievable. I was going to say you don't watch much TV. Anyway, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.